Zenless Zone Zero is a game that I imagine many of you have heard of, but likely don't play due to multiple reasons. I truly believe this is an underrated gacha game in regards of storytelling, character designs, combat, and really just any visual aspect of the game. It's really pretty, and I think that people should appreciate the game more. With how much I like this game, I wanted to sit down and think about why this game isn't as popular, especially in comparison to other Hoyo titles, because to me, there's so many strengths in this particular Hoyo game that the other games would be infinitely more entertaining if they implemented aspects of Zenless Zone Zero into their games. Hopefully by the end of this video, you may feel more interested in giving Zenless Zone Zero another shot, or maybe, if not, just gain a better appreciation of the game, because this is by far my favorite Hoyo game as of this moment. I've completed up to 2.0 of the main story in Zenless Zone Zero, and as of this patch, I'm currently caught up with all the main story quests and character quests. Not so much the side quests, because there's a lot and I don't really care about them. Side quests aside, there really is a lot to offer that this game has. There's a lot of really interesting characters, and I think that things really just make sense. Now, I talked a lot in my previous video about Zenless Zone Zero about why I like this story so much, but that video admittedly has the audio quality similar to someone recording in a separate room, and I'd like to really reiterate my praises for the game's storytelling, and I think if these ways of storytelling was in a game like Honkai Star Rail or Genshin Impact, people would love those games infinitely more. Cutscenes are infinitely more fluid and bouncy, and characters are just more reactive to each other. There's so much expression in the way that things move in this game. Characters have demeanors, and their personality shows really well in their combat as well as their story quests, and it's just kind of insane. This has always been a strength Zenless Zone Zero has had. Timid characters would act in a timid way, and serious characters would act serious, while more loud and annoying characters will act in a way that conveys exactly that. Again, it just all makes sense. Characters have relations to each other that explain why they are the way that they are, and rather than every character just being this really nice, holier-than-thou character, some of them are actually pretty morally gray and in some cases just not really good people. Especially if you kind of think about why they are the way they are. I think a perfect example of a character who may be considered good, but is also questionable at the same time, is Vivian. I'm sure many of you have seen this character and heard of her gimmick. But to simplify her personality, she's a bit of a simp for the main character, to an unhealthy and obsessive degree. While it is comedic, what she's doing is an extreme red flag. Her heart is in the right place, and she maybe shows a bit too much of that heart. But this isn't a character that can do no wrong, and I don't need to do extra lore reading to understand that as a casual player. Or let's talk about the classic, arguably the poster girl for this game, Nicole. She's a gold digger, and she's someone who seemingly values money over all else, at least to my understanding. And yes, it is comedic, but also, at the same time, this isn't something that's brushed off or considered okay. She gets called out, and she's told, stop going into debt. Please, just stop going into debt, Nicole, I'm sick of it. Another thing is I also really appreciate that older characters do build relationships with the newer ones, so nobody's really forgotten, at least in most cases. Even if not in the story, you get to see them do little things in the events, rather than just us helping random NPCs, which is really helpful. I think it's better, I think it makes it more immersive, and I like it much more than the way it's done in other Hoyo games. Another thing is, I think the immersion of Zenless Zone Zero provides a much better experience than Genshin and Star Rail for a number of reasons, and I wish that this game was more popular because it really does deserve that level of popularity. Now, I already mentioned the fluidity of the cutscenes and the way that characters bounce off of each other, but there's so much more little things that the game does that really helps things just get pieced together, at least for me. I think the biggest thing that I love about this game is that the main character has personality. I picked Belle, and I really have no regrets picking her. She's actually my favorite character from the game. But I can understand if people liked Wise more, because Belle is a lot, and I totally get that. She's probably not gonna be for everyone. I really do think that they provide different vibes depending on the one that you play as, so your choice actually matters, and I much prefer that than just having the illusion of choice. Another small touch that I noticed in this game is that during special cutscenes, I feel like the characters are facing you, rather than looking into the void or facing in-game characters. I think this eye contact kind of forces me to pay attention rather than watch still images on a screen, and I really think these kinds of cutscenes should be put into other Hoyo games because those games seem to rely much more on their lore for storytelling, so I think it's just hard for me to focus on, and having to force eye contact really does help that. I really don't know if that's just a me thing or not, but I feel like it's hard to pay attention in these games sometimes, especially when it's lore heavy. As crazy as it sounds, there is always something moving, so I feel like I'm forced to pay attention on what's going on. I'm always engaged because I have something to watch, and it sounds so, like, pathetic to verbalize, but that's just how I feel about it. With all of this in mind, it really does make me wonder why this game isn't as big as Genshin or Star Rail, especially when the characters are such a big reason for why gacha games like these are as big as they are. I really don't think people play these games for the story. I think they play them for the cool-looking characters, and the game, like, it looks cool, it looks great, look at it. And the game just looks so polished that I don't understand why this game isn't as big as it is. But I do have some guesses on why this could be the case. Now, I think that it makes sense that Genshin is the biggest one of the 3 Hoyo games that came out. The timing of this game coming out was perfect, and it makes sense for a lot of us to have given this game a chance, especially with all the free time we suddenly had. With Star Rail, I feel like this was more Genshin's successor, another Hoyo title for more players to get hooked onto this cursed gacha genre. Now, if we fast forward a bit to Zenless Zone Zero being released, this was around a similar time to Wuthering Waves being released as well. And while you didn't need to choose one to play, Wuthering Waves was kind of labeled the Genshin clone, and Zenless Zone Zero was just, oh, it's a Hoyo game. Now, I may be crazy, but I feel like Genshin is more well-known than Hoyoverse, because Genshin is kind of what made Hoyoverse as big as it is. So if we use the term another Hoyo game versus the quote Genshin killer, I think the Genshin killer is going to be more well-known and more popular. It didn't go off of a tried and true formula like Wuthering Waves did with Genshin. It was different, and differing from the norm can be risky. Sure, the game does play similar to Honkai Impact 3rd, but that game is not as well known as the other Hoyo games. I really think that due to the timing and difference that this game had, it wasn't able to build as much traction as the other gacha games that came out after Genshin Impact, despite it being a Hoyo title. Most casual gacha players being devoted to Genshin, Star Rail, Wuthering Waves, or a combination of the 3, adding a 4th one really is difficult, especially given the daily and weekly commitments expected to be put into a gacha game. With frequent updates and all that, it's a lot, it's an unnecessary commitment, but it is the case. I also personally despise the launch for this game because of the TV systems and the slow pacing of the story in the beginning. I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that because the television systems ultimately got removed from the main story and now is focused on the hack and slash aspect of the game. It is interesting because I think that the devs have been going above and beyond with improving their game, which is really great. It's more for me to play, and I like it. But it is kind of funny that there has been multiple attempts seemingly to, like, revive their game. There's been many almost, like, relaunches and pre-registrations. I believe it was 1.4, and I believe 2.0. There might have been another one, but I feel like the game still is not as big as the other gacha games in the market. I do still think that this game has the possibility and the potential to grow into something bigger. And I think that for what this game is, it is really polished, and the game has the ingredients to be a great gacha game if it isn't already considered one. So I really think that a lot of this can be blamed on luck, people going towards Wuthering Waves more because it's the Genshin clone. And I like Wuthering Waves. It stayed good, so people didn't need to try Zenless Zone Zero. And I do think that this game had a poor launch, at least for me, and I think other people. So I think that combination of things is why this game is well known, but many people don't actually play it. They know it as a Hoyo title, but it's also not Wuthering Waves, it's not Genshin, it's not Star Rail. Therefore, it isn't, like, good enough, I guess, to most people. And it is a shame. I wish people would play this game more. Even though there have been changes to try to fix it, such as the map navigation and just the general combat, which great, make your game better, but it is unfortunate that this game isn't bigger than it really is. And I think that this game is more underrated than Honkai Impact 3rd, because while Honkai Impact, it has an incredible story, People who play that game are ridiculously devoted. I don't know if that's the case for Zenless Zone Zero, but with Zenless, the amount of quality put into this game definitely doesn't compare to the other games of the same quality. It's really well polished, it's really pretty, and it's really just fun. It definitely deserves more attention. To those who have not tried this game or quit after launch, I do encourage you to give this game a chance. But either way, these are my reasons for why I believe that Zenless Zone Zero is not as big as the other Hoyo games. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.